we're about to leave the cell block building and head towards the last part of our tour of Ravensbruck. Behind me is the cell which we looked at a few moments ago where flogging took place. It's a sobering sight, to say the least. At first I thought there was not much to see when we arrived at this camp, when I arrived. But as it turns out, there's a lot more to see here than meets the eye once one gets into some of the buildings and the exhibits. I hope today's tour has given you a different perspective on the variety of concentration, death camps, transit camps, work camps, slave labor camps, prison camps, all under that umbrella of concentration camps that the Nazis built as part of the final solution. It's worth studying the unique experience that women had during the Holocaust, not just from a perspective of being in a place like this, but there have been studies about how women fared as far as survival skills, how they had to handle holding the family together many times when the men had been shipped off. And this is something that I'll talk about in class at various times and may have already talked about in class. And you may be interested in looking, if you go on the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum's website, there's a section on all about women's experience. And if you go onto the Yad Vashem website, there's an entire section called Spots of Light, I think it's called, and it's all about the women's experience as we start realizing that women who arrived at a camp and were found to be pregnant, that was an immediate death sentence. And so when we look at what happened in places like Auschwitz, we find a very, very unique situation where Dr. Gisela Perl, who we will be learning about, had the onerous task of aborting over 1,000 babies in order to save the mothers so that the mothers would hopefully someday be able to give birth to a Jewish child that would live. Because if a baby was found in the barracks, then that was a death sentence possibly for the whole block, the whole barracks. The idea of collective punishment was a daily part of the Nazi ideology. And so I urge you, especially some of you women, there are some really good books out there. Probably the best book that I have read is Women in the Holocaust, written by Dahlia Ofer. But Carol Roth has also written a number of books, Voices from the Holocaust, and there's some excellent literature written by a woman by the name of Charlotte Delbo, and her literature just got translated from French within the past few years, and she writes a book called Auschwitz and After, which really tells us from a women's perspective what it was like. So I urge you to kind of look for those. If you look on my Vimeo website, you'll note that there is a lecture there on the women's experience, as well as on my YouTube website. I have several mini lectures on the unique experience that women had during the Shoah. And with that, we'll continue our tour of Ravensbruck.